What if I told you that the difference between being ignored and being impossible to ignore comes down to a single moment of recognition, a flash of understanding that happens before anyone even hears your voice? Leonardo da Vinci understood something that most people spend their entire lives missing. He knew that genius without presentation is just noise in a crowded room. Da Vinci didn't just create masterpieces. He engineered his entire image as a weapon of influence. Every stroke of his brush, every angle of his posture, every thread of fabric he wore was calculated to signal one thing: this man possesses what you cannot afford to ignore. But here's what no one tells you about the Renaissance master's true secret. It wasn't his artistic talent that opened doors to the most powerful courts in Europe. It was his understanding of a brutal truth about human nature that most people are too comfortable to accept. When you look diminished, the world conspires to diminish you further. When you appear scattered, opportunities scatter away from you. When your presentation whispers desperation, even your most brilliant ideas fall on deaf ears. This isn't about fairness. This isn't about what should be. This is about what is. And what is that humans make judgments in milliseconds that can shape the trajectory of your entire life. Da Vinci mastered this mechanism 5 centuries ago, and today we're going to dissect exactly how he did it. You've felt this dynamic before, haven't you? You've walked into rooms where the energy shifted the moment you appeared. You've watched lesser minds receive opportunities that should have been yours simply because they understood something you didn't. You've seen people with half your knowledge command twice your respect. This isn't accidental. This is the architecture of perception, and it's been operating according to the same principles since Da Vinci's time. The difference is that Da Vinci recognized it as a system that could be hacked. Most people believe that capability speaks for itself. They're wrong. Capability without credibility is just potential energy trapped in a container no one wants to open. Da Vinci knew that the container was just as important as the contents. He understood that first impressions aren't just opinions, they're economic decisions that determine who gets access to resources, relationships, and opportunities. Think about this. Every person who looks at you is making an instant calculation. Are you someone who can solve their problems or create new ones? Are you someone who adds value to their network or someone who might diminish it? Are you someone worth remembering or someone safe to forget? These calculations happen faster than conscious thought. They're based on visual data, your posture, your grooming, your clothing choices, the way you occupy space. Before you speak a single word, verdicts are being rendered about your competence, your reliability, your status in the social hierarchy. Da Vinci weaponized this process. He understood that if you're going to be judged anyway, and you are going to be judged anyway, then you might as well control the narrative. He dressed like the genius he was becoming, not like the apprentice he had been. He carried himself with the confidence of a man who had already achieved what he was still working toward. This is where most people make their critical error. They wait for success to change how they present themselves. They think, once I have money, then I'll dress well. Once I have status, then I'll command respect. Once I have power, then I'll act powerful. Da Vinci flipped this sequence. He understood that the external shapes the internal just as much as the internal shapes the external. When you dress with intention, you think with greater clarity. When you carry yourself with dignity, you make decisions from a position of strength rather than desperation. But here's what separates Da Vinci's approach from simple vanity. It wasn't about impressing people. It was about removing friction from his path to achievement. Every element of his presentation was designed to eliminate the resistance that comes from being underestimated. When you look scattered, people assume your thinking is scattered. When you look undisciplined in your appearance, they assume you're undisciplined in your work. When you look like you can't manage your own image, they question whether you can manage their projects, their investments, their trust. Da Vinci eliminated these assumptions by controlling every signal he sent. His clothing was precise, his posture was commanding, his grooming was meticulous. Not because he was vain, but because he understood that these details were the difference between being seen as a craftsman and being recognized as a master. So, if this distinction between presentation and pretense, between strategic image management and shallow vanity hit you, leave a comment with 1 or 2 words that capture what shifted for you. Something simple like precision, intentionality, or recognition. The modern world has made this dynamic even more pronounced. We live in an economy of attention where first impressions happen at digital speed. Your LinkedIn photo, your video call background, your email signature, these are all data points that people use to categorize you before they evaluate your ideas. Da Vinci would have thrived in this environment because he understood that managing perception isn't about deception, it's about clarity. It's about making sure the signal matches the substance, so the substance actually gets heard. Consider the paradox of resource allocation in our economy. Investment flows toward those who appear least likely to need it desperately. Banks offer the best terms to people who could survive without the loan. Clients choose service providers who seem busy rather than available. Employers hire candidates who appear to have options rather than those who seem grateful for any opportunity. This isn't cruelty. This is efficiency. The human brain uses appearance as a shortcut to assess competence because thoroughly evaluating everyone's capabilities would require too much energy. When you present yourself with precision and intention, you're making it easy for people to place you in the category of serious player rather than charity case. Da Vinci understood that this shortcut could work in his favor. When he entered the court of a potential patron, every detail of his appearance communicated competence before he displayed a single sketch. His clothing suggested he was already successful. His bearing implied he had options. His grooming indicated he had the discipline to manage complex projects. These weren't lies, they were strategic truths. Da Vinci was already the genius he appeared to be. He was just making sure nothing interfered with that recognition. The alternative is what we see everywhere today. Brilliant people whose ideas never get proper consideration because their presentation creates doubt about their execution. Talented individuals who remain invisible because they've made themselves easy to overlook. Capable professionals who get passed over for opportunities because they've failed to signal their own value. This creates a vicious cycle. When you're underestimated, you get fewer opportunities. Fewer opportunities mean less experience with high-stakes situations. Less experience means lower confidence. Lower confidence affects your presentation, which leads to being underestimated again. Da Vinci broke this cycle by investing in his image before he had the results to justify it. He dressed like the master he intended to become. He spoke with the authority he was building. He presented himself as someone whose time was valuable because he understood that people value what appears scarce and dismiss what seems abundant. But this goes deeper than clothing and posture. Da Vinci's real secret was understanding that presentation is about energy management, both yours and theirs. When you present yourself with confidence and precision, you conserve your energy for the actual work instead of constantly having to overcome skepticism about your capabilities. Think about how much mental energy you waste when people underestimate you. You have to work twice as hard to prove basic competence. You have to over-explain simple concepts. You have to overcome doubt that shouldn't exist in the first place. This is exhausting, and it leaves you with less energy for actually being brilliant. Da Vinci eliminated this tax on his attention. His presentation created a presumption of competence that allowed conversations to start at a higher level. Instead of proving he wasn't incompetent, he could immediately demonstrate how exceptional he was. This is the difference between playing defense and playing offense with your image. When your presentation is weak, you spend all your time defending against negative assumptions. When your presentation is strong, you can immediately move into demonstrating your unique value. The compound effect of this difference is enormous. Over months and years, the person who eliminates image-based friction accomplishes significantly more than the person who constantly battles against their own presentation. Not because they're more talented, but because they're not wasting energy on obstacles they created for themselves. Da Vinci also understood the importance of environmental design. He didn't just manage his personal appearance, he curated every aspect of his workspace and living environment to reinforce the image of mastery. His studio was organized to suggest both artistic sensitivity and scientific precision. His tools were maintained with care that suggested respect for craftsmanship. This environmental consciousness extends to the digital age. Your email formatting, your video call setup, your social media presence, these all contribute to the impression you create. Da Vinci would have paid attention to these details because he understood that consistency across all touchpoints builds credibility. But here's where many people misunderstand Da Vinci's approach. It wasn't about projecting false confidence or pretending to be something he wasn't. It was about removing any interference between his true capabilities and how others perceived those capabilities. The goal isn't to trick people into thinking you're more capable than you are. The goal is to ensure that people can accurately assess your actual capabilities without being distracted by irrelevant signals about your grooming organization or attention to detail. When someone sees you and immediately questions whether you can handle responsibility, they're not really questioning your intelligence or your skills. They're questioning your judgment and your standards. If you don't maintain high standards for your own presentation, why would they trust you to maintain high standards for their projects? This is why Da Vinci's approach was sustainable. He wasn't creating a false image that would eventually be exposed. He was creating alignment between his internal standards and his external presentation. The discipline required to maintain his image reinforced the discipline required to do exceptional work. The psychological effect of this alignment is profound. When you dress with intention, you think with greater precision. When you organize your environment, you organize your thoughts. When you carry yourself with dignity, you approach challenges with confidence rather than desperation. Da Vinci leveraged this psychological feedback loop. His investment in his image wasn't separate from his development as an artist and innovator. It was part of the same system of excellence that produced his masterpieces. And if this way of thinking resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe. Not for hype, not for shortcuts, but to join a growing group of people who are done confusing effort with intelligence and ready to apply systems thinking to every aspect of their development. The modern equivalent of Da Vinci's strategy requires understanding how perception works in a digital-first economy. Your professional headshot, your email signature, your virtual meeting setup, these are the modern equivalent of Da Vinci's carefully chosen attire and meticulously organized studio. But the principle remains the same. Every detail either reinforces your credibility or undermines it. There's no neutral ground. Either you're managing these details intentionally or they're working against you by default. Da Vinci understood that this level of attention to presentation wasn't vanity. It was professional competence. In a world where first impressions determine whether you get second chances, managing your image is as important as managing your actual capabilities. The people who resist this understanding usually fall into one of two categories. The first group believes that their work should speak for itself, without considering that their work often never gets the chance to speak because their presentation prevents anyone from taking them seriously in the first place. The second group believes that focusing on image is somehow dishonest or superficial. But there's nothing dishonest about ensuring that your external presentation accurately reflects your internal standards. If anything, presenting yourself poorly when you're actually capable is the dishonest approach. It's lying about your level of professionalism and attention to detail. Da Vinci would have thrived in today's creator economy because he understood that attention is the scarcest resource, and capturing attention requires understanding how human psychology works. People make rapid judgments based on limited information, and those judgments determine whether your actual capabilities ever get evaluated. This is why successful people in every era have understood the importance of presentation. It's not about impressing anyone. It's about removing barriers to accurate assessment of your value. When your presentation creates doubt, people never get to see your actual work. When your presentation creates confidence, your work gets evaluated fairly. The compound effect of this difference is what separates those who achieve their potential from those who remain trapped beneath it. Over time, the person who eliminates presentation-based friction builds relationships, opportunities, and resources that the equally talented but poorly presented person never accesses. Da Vinci's legacy isn't just in his art. It's in his understanding that genius without influence is just personal satisfaction. He didn't create masterpieces just for himself. He created them to change the world, and he understood that changing the world requires other people to take you seriously enough to give you the resources and platforms necessary for impact. This is the ultimate lesson from Da Vinci's approach to image management. It's not about what you think of yourself. It's about removing any obstacles to others, recognizing what you're actually capable of achieving. When your presentation eliminates doubt, your capabilities get proper consideration. When your presentation creates confidence, you get access to opportunities that develop those capabilities further. The alternative is remaining trapped in a cycle where your actual potential never gets properly evaluated because surface-level signals prevent people from looking deeper. This isn't just personally frustrating, it's economically inefficient and socially wasteful. Da Vinci solved this problem by treating his image as a strategic asset that required the same attention to detail as his art. The result was a career that influenced not just the Renaissance, but every era since. His approach to presentation didn't just serve his personal ambitions, it ensured that his contributions could reach their maximum impact. And there you have it. How looking poor rigs the game against you. We explored why capability alone remains limited without credibility, how presentation shapes opportunity, and why strategic image management has always been the silent accelerator behind sustained influence. If these lessons sharpen your thinking, continue with the next video. It will take you further. Support the channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Stay sharp, stay intentional. Keep crafting your influence the way Da Vinci crafted his legacy, one deliberate choice at a time. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next video.